From the city of broad shoulders, this is Chicago Unscripted. I'm Bill Curtis. Now here's your host, just a few octaves higher than me, CBS Chicago's Joe Donlin.
Aside from college, Allie Barthwell has never left Chicago, but she's been on quite a journey. She grew up in Oak Park, and after graduating from Wellesley College, she came back home and started taking sketch and improv classes at Second City. Along the way, she pursued one of her passions, watching TV, reality TV in particular. If this genre is your jam, you are likely a fan of her work, and you're going to like the conversation ahead. While she focuses on recapping episodes of the Bachelor franchise, she has also covered the Real Housewives franchise and more. That's where we start. And if she had to pick, which reality TV show would she go on? There is one, which eventually leads us to her other job, where, oh, by the way, she's won 5 Emmy Awards, writing for John Oliver's show Last Week Tonight. If you haven't seen it on HBO, it's described as a satirical, insightful, and meticulously researched look at current events in the U.S. and around the globe. Those jokes don't write themselves. Allie shares some insight into that writing process and her audition with John Oliver. She also wrote for the, shall we say, adult-based game Cards Against Humanity. Allie has a book due out next summer about, what else? Reality TV. We talk about that. And the day she found a bruise that led to a cancer diagnosis. If you're a cancer survivor or know one, I think you'll appreciate her description of that journey. That dovetails into some of her thoughts about Chicago, what the city means to her, and what she thinks needs to happen to make Chicago even better. Here's Allie Barthwell. Allie B., thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure and an honor. And Allie B. seems to be perfect for you, right? It's so reality TV. And you can check me on this, but I think there's been like an Allie B. on every season of The Bachelor now.
There's always an Allie B. There's usually like a Rachel F., maybe like a Peter Q. Like the initials are very big on The Bachelor.
Yeah, I guess just in general, let me start with this. How do you go from writing some of the smartest, most biting political satire on TV with Last Week Tonight to recapping the Golden Bachelor?
Well, I got to tell you, it's the same muscles. It's the same brain. It's the same sort of perspective. But I've been recapping The Bachelor reality TV. I recapped Real Housewives. I also I used to recap Empire, like at the very beginning of the show. I've done that since 2015. So I've done that. Like I had the realization this year of like, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like people know me for that. Like that's how people like are, oh my God, you're Allie Barthwell. You write about The Bachelor. But I remember there was a moment when I was doing my application packet for Last Week Tonight that I was like, deep in the trenches of it, like, oh my God, how do I do this? That I had the realization of like, oh, this is a recap. Like this is the same skill set that you've been building.
Yeah.
And apply those skills to this. And that's when I was able to like, just sort of know exactly how to carry myself through, how to guide myself through the material. But really it's, and to also hint at like things I've done in my illustrative past.
Right. No, it has been. I mean, what a ride it's been for you.
Working at Second City, you also know like you're always playing to the height of your intelligence. You're always playing to the height of your audience's intelligence. So what I want to do when I write about The Bachelor, when I write about the Golden Bachelor, is to use things that I know about to help my audience understand and uncover things in their lives or in the world around them, using the show to talk about these concepts. And so usually for The Bachelor, it's gender relations, sexuality, dating norms, talking about, the expectations that are put on us as men and women. And because of, my life and my past, we can also talk about racism and how race and gender interacts and how different people date differently. And so you're really just using all those same thoughts, and it's just the filter is me, and whatever's coming in or out of the filter is me.
Interesting. Well, there's a lot to chop up with that, but I have a couple of questions about the process for you. Are you able to see the episodes ahead of time, and are you able to talk with any of the producers afterwards, or is this just, are you watching it like everyone else?
In the beginning, it really was me watching it like everyone else. I would have to stay up. If I was lucky, I had a TiVo, but sometimes I'd have to race home and watch it. But I would watch it and write it immediately after watching the episode and turn it in. The episode would end at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. I would turn it in at 10 or 11, my recap. And then as time has gone on and I've remained a fixture at Vulture, the site where these recaps are published and put on the internet, they've been able to negotiate that I'm able to get screeners. And also I do not talk to anyone at The Bachelor. I don't know what's going on. It's really, again, like I said, it's really my reactions, my interpretations. And I've had friends tell me that, I have friends that don't watch a lot of reality TV, and they're like, I read your recaps and then I can talk to people at my office because there's like a gang of people in the break room that have a pool on who's going to win. And they're like, I've always felt a bit on the outside of that. So they're like, I read your recaps and then I talk to those people and I sound like I know what I'm talking about. So that's, in my mind, that's also who I'm writing for.
At the same time, though, I'm assuming you have to turn this quickly because as soon as the episode's over, I'm sure people are going online to see what you have to say about the episode.
Oh, yeah. I think when I was teaching, I would tell students, like, you need something that just gives you a lot of writing practice, that just gives you a lot of time to just explore and play and work on stuff. And so for me, I've been writing, in the beginning, they were 1,000 words. Now they've ballooned. I write like 2,400 words, which is like way too many words. But I'm writing, 2,400 words about The Bachelor in a night, in a few hours.
Yeah.
So just that, and it's every week. There have been years where there'll be Bachelor and then The Bachelorette and then Bachelor in Paradise and then The Golden Bachelor or whatever. So you're maybe writing for 40 weeks out of the year, every week.
Are you still doing The Real Housewives or no? Is it just basically The Bachelor now, pretty much?
Basically The Bachelor now. I still really love The Real Housewives, and I've even expanded my viewing of the franchises that I watch. So I used to recap Atlanta and Potomac. And now I watch many, many other of the franchises because it's really I have free time that I'm not having to watch and then write.
To watch more TV?
To watch more, right. My mom always jokes, I picked the one career that justifies how much TV that I watch.
Yeah, and you get paid for it.
I get paid for it. I get to talk about it with people. I get, people send me their thoughts. It's great.
All right, I have never seen one episode of any of the Housewives, not one. Does that make me a bad person?
No, it doesn't make you a bad person. It only makes you a bad person if you like to watch television with complex female characters, because in that regard, you are missing some of the most complex female characters on television in The Real Housewives. And
who's the audience for that?
I think it is
any of them.
I think it is people that it's like you like prestige TV, but you don't want to have to think that hard about it, which is great to have hobbies for your brain that your brain can relax, decompress as you're watching. But I think the urge of, it's people that like White Lotus, it's people that like Pretty Little Lies. There's people, now because some of the housewives have been involved in criminal activity, it's people that like true crime. If you're anyone that likes a diva or a really kind of bad bitch, there's a Real Housewives out there for you. And something that's really interesting is each franchise has a slightly different vibe. So you can kind of match the person to what franchise is going to be a good starter one for you. And then if you like that franchise, you can expand, you can add more until you're watching a few different franchises. So for you, this is something that's in my upcoming book. We're plugging all the projects. Right?
Well, I know you will get there.
Is what kind of other kinds of TV do you like to watch, or other characters on TV that you really like? Because I bet I could find a housewife show, like
Oh,
housewife
really?
franchise.
Okay,
that
slow
could
horses.
pair.
I love slow horses. What would that be?
Slow Horses. That's like a spy
Yeah, the
kind
British
of
Spy. Yeah,
British spies. Well, they're bringing
Gary
back.
Oldman.
They're gonna bring back Ladies of London. Which or they're gonna bring back a Real Housewives of London. They called it Ladies of London in the past. They're gonna bring that back. But what about a TV show do you really enjoy? Like, what kind of thing are you looking for?
I like intrigue. I think part of the reason, I don't know, the housewife stuff just doesn't appeal to me. I guess that's part of my question to you is that we can't seem to get enough of watching how screwed up other people's lives are, right?
Right.
Is that why these shows are so popular? Because there's so much crazy drama. I mean, I was asking my kids about this yesterday, knowing that you and I were going to talk, and they brought up the Salt Lake Housewives.
Oh, yeah. That's if anyone wants a starter franchise. Start season 1, episode 1, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, because I was going to recommend, if you like intrigue, Jen Shaw has Criminal Activity. On Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, there's Criminal Activity. That's also a good one.
But now, wait, this Salt Lake thing, apparently there's a granddaughter who's now with her step-grandfather?
Okay, we have to slow down. The people need to process one at a time. Okay, so you were talking about Mary Cosby. Mary Cosby is a pastor at like sort of a mega church. It's like a medium church, not all the way mega, but pretty big church. That was started by her grandmother. When her grandmother passed away, she said, "Mary, I'm going to leave you my congregation. In leaving you my congregation, you also have to marry my second husband." So Mary is married to her step grandfather, who
has a kid, right?
They have a kid, and her step grandfather slash husband is like, I think he's only like 20. He's not like, he's maybe 30 years older than her, 25, 30 years older than her. So he was much younger than Mary's grandmother.
Okay.
And in the first episode of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, someone sits down next to Mary Cosby, and Mary's like, "You have to get away from me. You smell like hospital." And she's like, "You have to get away." And the person's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "I was just in the hospital with my aunt, and you smell like a hospital. You have to leave." In another episode, Mary's throwing a lunch, which is a very common Real Housewives staple, to throw a lunch.
Okay.
And Mary is talking about all the things that she's going to have at her lunch. And she says, "I'm going to have 2003 Dom Perignon, because there was a heat wave in France. So the champagne grapes were able to stay on the vine longer, and they're more delicious." And then she goes, "Yes, 1,000 people did die in France because of this heat wave. But it is the best vintage of Dom Perignon."
Wow. What do you take away from the success of the Bachelor franchise, Allie? And I guess in a way, the not so surprising fact that there haven't been many of these couples who've lasted, right? I think how many have ultimately gotten married?
Yeah,
together?
I think at this point, the most successful show has been Bachelor in Paradise in terms of the couple's longevity. Bachelor in Paradise is like the All-Stars kind of spin-off.
Right.
Where people from The Bachelor and The Bachelorette get on a beach. And I think because that, one, you have people which is a problem that fans have identified. You have people that are meeting each other online before the season starts, just because all these people follow each other on Instagram. They all hang out together. So you might be at a party and see someone, and then they're on the beach, but I think also Bachelor in Paradise, it really resembles like dating. They have a lot of uninterrupted time to kind of just sit and talk, as opposed to The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, where you only see the person that you're trying to court like once a week for a couple hours. And on Paradise, you're able to spend all day together. So Paradise is a lot of successful couples. The Bachelorette, I think, still has more successful couples than The Bachelor. And people there's like Instagram accounts that do the data and like track the longevity of relationships. Mm-hmm. And for a while, The Bachelorette was the most successful franchise. And they found that the women would give out, on both The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, you give out the first impression rose. So it's like the person who catches your eye on the first night. And the women on The Bachelorette had a better track record of ending up with the guy that they gave their first impression rose to. So people would joke like, oh, women have a better sense of like their chemistry right off the bat with someone. But I think like what is so interesting about the Bachelor franchise is it really is, you know, it's a romantic comedy that you get to watch like at, a couple hours every week.
And a train wreck too.
And
at
a
the same
train
time.
wreck. And I think watching people date, gossiping about people dating is like a very attractive human thing to do. And so something I talk about in my book is that like reality TV gives us people that it's safe to gossip about. Like you sort of don't want to gossip about your friends. It might get back to them. You don't really want to gossip about your coworkers. Like you might get reported to HR, but it is totally fine for you to gossip about Matt James and Rachel, his former his ex-girlfriend. And so I think it satisfies that we want to gossip about our friends dating. And I think it's watching a very, like I said, traditional rom-com boy meets girl kind of dating, and it's very it's quite sexless, and I think that is also like in a way attractive to people that and it has a lot of things built in about what is everyone's intentions of being here. You're here for the right reasons. So there's
what do you mean
bit of
sexless?
On The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, you do not have sex until the fantasy suites. You do not have sex until you've gotten down to your final three.
Well, that's not been the case either, right? There've been
there've only been a few that have had sex before the fantasy suites, and usually, what has happened is it's like the most famous one I can think of is Caitlyn. She was a bachelorette, and then she gets punished for it. There's sort of like either the other guys are really upset with her contestants are really upset with her. She had a big backlash from the fandom because the fandom skews very middle America, very traditional, very Christian. Now I think they're realizing pretty Mormon because the next Bachelorette is coming off of Secret Wives of Mormon Lives.
Or
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I always get that reversed. But so the show really pretends that sex is something to be reserved for your top three contestants.
For the fantasy suite.
For the fantasy suite.
What if you're the third person in there, right?
I know.
Come on, right? Speaking of it smells like a hospital, you'd be like, it smells like pine sol in here. What's going on?
Allegedly, there's a day in between each fantasy suite. But yeah, I do think I would want to be first in the order. There's again, the people that track the data, there's a real debate of like, who has the advantage? The person in the middle has no advantage. Like you don't want to be the person in the middle, but it's like, do you want to be the last person? So he's still thinking about you or she's still thinking about you, or the first person to like set the bar. If you could set like the bar and then go from there. But yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of these other shows, Love Island, Love is Blind, that really emphasize that have a more frank discussion of sex, have a more honest depiction of, oh yeah, you have sex with somebody way before you get married nowadays, and they sort of they can, it's just interesting to watch a show like The Bachelor alongside these other shows and see how can The Bachelor keep up, where are they losing their audience, things like that.
All right, one other question on this, because I know we're up against the clock here, and I want to move on to some of the other many things I want to talk to you about. But if you had to be a contestant on a reality TV show, if you had to, what would be your first choice and why?
I think I would want to be on The Traitors. That's on Peacock. It's sort of the new hotness. Like the show is broken like RuPaul's Drag Race hosting Emmy streak. Alan Cumming has won a couple years in a row, I think. It's on Peacock. It's basically a murder, like the game Mafia or like murder mystery. And so you're in a castle in the Scottish Highlands, and there's a cast of about 20 people, and 2 to 3 of them are traitors. And if at the end of the season the traitors are still there, the traitors get all of the money. If the faithfuls can eliminate all the traitors, the faithfuls will split all of the money.
Oh, wow. This reminds me of that show the former CNN anchor did. What was her name? Brooke Baldwin? Was that her name? Remember the...
It's sort of like The Mole. It's kind of
Right.
it's sort of
Okay.
like The Mole, but on The Mole, the audience didn't know who the mole was. On the traitors, the
Right.
audience knows who the traitors are, and you can
Oh,
see.
interesting.
The only thing is, I think I would be very bad at the physical challenges.
Yeah.
I would not be good carrying a barrel full of gold down
Yeah.
through a marsh,
Hmm.
across a loch or a bog.
Uh-huh.
But I think the scheming and the strategizing and trying to figure out who the traitors are by logical elimination. I do a lot of logic puzzles. I'm a big logic puzzle
Okay.
girly. So I think I would have a lot of fun doing that.
Tell me a little bit about the book, because that's really why I wanted to have you on, in addition to all your Chicago connections. But is it finished? I know it's going to be released early next year, right?
It's coming out in the summer next year.
Okay.
We are in the final edits. This is my
Okay.
first time writing a book, first time going through the publishing process, finding out a lot about how much I enjoy edits and
Mm-hmm.
getting them done on time.
Right.
But it is called Reality TV for Snobs, and it is a guidebook to turn reality TV skeptics into reality TV superfans.
Wow.
It's 20 essays that have different sections and are sort of guide you along to help you understand the format of the show, the types of contestants that are on the shows, and sort of what people enjoy when they watch, why people watch, but also what are the conversation starters and bigger issues or themes or messages that you can get from watching these reality shows.
So I guess I would be a good audience for the book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily watch, but is it supposed to make me more interested in watching or bring me up to speed so I can have a conversation about it?
It's to do both. So the first goal is to bring you up to speed. So when you're at a party, you're on a road trip with somebody and they just start talking about how much they love Survivor or how much they love Big Brother, that you can be like, I know who Boston Rob is. I can participate in this conversation. Boston Rob also on a season of The Traitors. He was on Amazing Race. But so you can participate in the conversations and you know what people are talking about. And there's conversation starters in there that you can drop into the conversation and the other people will just go and you can listen and get their opinions on things. So it's to make them feel that you know what you're talking about. But what I ultimately want is I want people to read the book and read some analysis or a description of an episode or of a storyline and say, you know what, I gotta get eyes on that. I gotta see what's going on with that.
Reality TV for Snobs is what it's called. We'll look for it next summer. All right, let's talk about Chicago for a minute, Allie. Tell me what it was like to grow up. You grew up in Oak Park, right?
Yep, I grew up in Oak Park and River Forest. I went to OPRF. I mean, I think I really had a great. I loved our suburb. I loved being close to being able to come downtown. I think when we were old enough and in high school to take the train from the Green Line from Harlem all the way into the Loop or wherever we were going, that was like a big step in your suburban adolescent development. And there was a band at my high school that I think their like first album was called like the Red Line to Addison. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But looking at it now, it's like, that is not the coolest stop on any train line to get off the Red Line at Addison. Like, okay. So, and I remember I got to college and we had a history class where we did readings on suburbs. And there was a reading about Oak Park. And I was like, oh, I'm from here. Like, this is where I grew up. But my parents came to Chicago in like the late 70s, early 80s. They did their residencies here. They're both doctors. And they have lived in Chicago pretty much since then. In Chicago, they moved out to the suburbs when they had us. So we've been in the Chicago area for, my whole life. Their whole professional lives. When I went to Wellesley outside Boston,
right?
College,
which is impressive. I mean,
thank you very much.
So, was there any talk from your parents of, did they expect you or your two brothers to follow in their footsteps in the medical field?
No, they always joked that their children were too smart to become doctors.
That's what I've said about our kids too. They're too smart
yeah.
to get into journalism.
Too
Yeah.
smart and so I think they did want us to find something that we really enjoyed. That was always important to them. And I think if medicine was one of our callings, they totally would have been like, yes, please go do that. But
Right.
it's funny. My older brother was an art major. My younger brother went into social work, and now he does like shipping and online, like logistics.
Okay. Yeah.
So we all really took a very different path. But I was a French major in college. I sort of didn't know what I was going to do.
Wow.
But
your calling was always the theater, though, wasn't it?
I think so. But I remember sort of thinking, I don't know how someone gets to do that. I don't, and I did not fit the beauty standard of the early 2000s, and so I remember sort of being like, well, that's for people who get to do a Disney show or people who live in LA, or, I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how someone gets to be able to do that. And so I went to college. I was a French major. I studied abroad in France. And, but I was never like, oh, I'm going to be an interpreter. I'm going to be like a historian. I was doing improv and sketch in college. I got a scholarship to Second City when I was in college. And I think that was sort of the moment for, at least for my parents, of, okay, there's someone else that thinks she can do this. She's not just like making up that she's good at this. There's someone else that like wants her to come and do this. And so when I graduated, I moved back to Chicago, lived at home, I got free classes at Second City for a year. And that sort of started me on my path with Second City, doing improv, sketch. I eventually was on the touring company. I was understudying the resident stages. When I left the touring company, I became a teacher, and then I ended up becoming a director of one of the touring company that I was a member of. And so I was in the improv sketch community for 10 years. Then the pandemic hit. And then in the summer of 2020 is when I got Last Week Tonight. So I sort of had 10 years of improv and sketch, and now I'm in 5 years of Last Week Tonight.
It's amazing how many people have come through Second City, and many of them we've talked with on the pod here. But what did that experience teach you, Allie, as far as comedy, improv? How did it help your writing and your performance?
I mean, I'll say this. I never thought I was a writer. When I was at Second City, the thing I was really good at, I'm a very good improviser. I was a very good improviser. I'm an okay sketch actress, but I'm a very good improviser.
Okay. That's even harder though.
Yeah. And the thing I could do quite well is I could improvise the same scene twice. So I could do a scene, get notes, change it on the fly, re-improvise. Which when I was coming up in the classes was told to me as being the Second City process. So I really absorbed, like, this is the Second City process. And I think that also just worked very well with my brain and how my memory works. And so, but again, it was sort of a thing where there were other people they were looking at to promote to be the actors on the stage. And I started to have people tell me, oh, you're a really good writer. And I was like, I don't know if I'm trying to be a good writer, but okay. But it taught me I realized I was writing on my feet. When I was improvising through a scene and taking in notes and re-improvising, I was writing it on my feet. And I could go back, and then I could go back and transcribe what I had done.
Let's move on to Last Week Tonight. How did you get that? How did that happen for you, Allie?
What I witnessed happening was I got an email asking me to do a submission that they were hiring in the summer of 2020. So I was like,
this was right in the middle of COVID.
Right in the middle of COVID. Everything I was doing, I was directing, I was teaching at Second City. Everything was shut down, or trying to figure out how to do the virtual version of. And I think I figured out how to do a little bit of virtual sketch, but it was not good. Like, do sketch on Zoom is not good. And so I got a submission packet. I did 2 rounds of a written packet, and then I did an interview. I did the interview, at like noon on whatever day, and then I got a call. All right, I had my interview at 3, and then I got a call at 5 that I've been hired.
Wow. Was John a part of that?
Yes, John was in my interview, as well as Tim Carvel, who's another executive producer on Last Week Tonight.
Well, you must have been nervous, huh?
Again, it was sort of like, I have no idea how this works. And I had had friends that had done interviews, and, I had friends of friends that were on other late night shows, but I sort of didn't really have I didn't have a real bestie that had gone through it that I could sort of ask everything. So I was like, all right, I just have to treat it like a job interview. I just have to treat it like a job, any other job interview. But yeah, I remember there was somebody that I was on when I was on the touring company. Somebody had an interview at Colbert, and I remember him the whole day shaking. But in talking to people, talking to some friends as I was doing the process, I sort of adopted the mindset of well, if they hire me, it's because I bring something that they need, that they want. They want me. I have joked sometimes writing interviews for comedy jobs are either, did you really write this? They're making sure you didn't just copy it. Right. It wasn't a fluke. Or are you crazy? And they're just can we hang out with you for 8 hours? Yes. And so I think mine was this is very good. How did you write this interview? And not, was it a fluke, but just sort of how did you arrive at all these different things? Kind of an interview.
Well, speaking of the process, now that you're there and you've been there and you've won 3 Emmys now on this show, is that right?
I have 5.
5 from Last Week Tonight?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I missed that.
Oh, that is okay.
All right. So how does the process work that you can share anyway? Do you write the entire half-hour show? Do you just write a section of it?
So pretty much everything that comes out of John's mouth, the first draft is from the writers.
Well, John just delivers it so well. And I just can't imagine the way that show flows for 30 minutes is really just incredible. I mean, it flows perfectly from topic to topic, and that's not easy to do for 30 minutes straight. He has great energy, and I mean, no one drops an F-bomb quite like John Oliver, I don't think, right?
We teach kids a lot in school, from reading to long division to how to play the fucking recorder for some reason. But recently, there has been a lot of concern over one particular thing that people worry that kids are learning.
Critical race theory is being taught in our schools.
One school used a privilege bingo card, which sure seems like a glib way to handle a very serious subject. Another classic lesson over the years has been to teach about prejudice metaphorically by dividing a classroom up by eye colour, with brown-eyed people, for instance, being the lowest tier and then being treated terribly. And if you do that in a diverse classroom and think for even a second about who is more likely to have brown eyes, you can probably immediately see just how badly that lesson could go. That actually happened in at least one school in the Chicago area, and the reason I know that is that this kid was in the class that day, and she's one of our writers now. Ali, what did you think of that lesson?
It was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I bet it was.
That's the joy of writing, that you can just be I can just say, because one of the great things is you can truly say whatever you want. We will try any joke, something that's weird, something that's dirty, something that's really angry, something that's sad. We will try all of it. So as a writer, when you're pitching, when I talk about you pitch those alternates, you're this is the joke I think will work. Here's an angry version of that. Here's a really raunchy version of that. Here's something that's totally out of left field. Here's where John will get to do an accent that we know he can't do.
Right.
So we need to make him do an accent he's really good at or not very good at. And so you get to, within your draft, you get to play. And it's that feeling that I like of just and someone else is going to handle it from there.
John has made a point of saying this isn't journalism. It's an opinion show. But in actuality, I think you could make the case that it's about the truth. I mean, he has invited and almost encouraged people and begged them to sue him, right?
I don't know. Listen, I'm not going to get on here and say what he's asked people to do in terms of suing him, and I can't talk about his opinion on whether or not we should be sued.
But my point is he knows he's been meticulously researched.
And I think in all comedy, it should be about some truth. There is a truth underneath the best comedy in the world. And you know, to get a little political, there's a reason I think comedy that's coming from the really far right doesn't hit, because they're not coming from they're not coming from truth. They're constantly inventing a guy to get mad at. Or in order for you to accept their premise, you have to accept a version of the world that's really hard to spot. It's really hard to find. And I think coming from a place of truth, coming from this is really happening, this is my point of view or my filter on the world as I see it, and I'm going to let you know how I see it. Sometimes when you're working on a sketch, like at Second City, you would have to have a moment to make the audience be in the same place as you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get you to laugh at my jokes unless you are on board for the reality that I'm going to be giving you for the next 5 minutes. And especially if that reality requires like a piece of information of like, this thing is happening in the news, this thing is happening in the world. I have to get you to like buy in, and then buy into the reality that I'm creating on stage. And then we can have fun with the jokes.
Right.
You have to do all that. And I think what ended up being very difficult at Second City, I wasn't touring or on the stages at this time, but during the 2016 election, it was really hard to get people to just agree what was true.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So those first few steps of the process as a writer, as a performer, here's the thing I'm telling you, here's what we're all going to be looking at. Here's the truth that I need you to accept to get to my jokes. It took longer to get people through that process. You had people in the audience that were really resistant to that process, to get to the jokes.
So how does that change what's happening with late night comedy, Ali, with what we've seen happen with Jimmy Kimmel and even Stephen Colbert, and the argument that in some case, to your point, you have to sort of accept a premise for this to be funny, or you would hope that people on both sides would get the joke without being offended. But the bottom line is you really are taking the risk of alienating, millions of people who could potentially be your audience because of this.
And I think comedy inherently alienates. There's the function of comedy is to draw lines of who gets this and who doesn't. I think comedy always is finding places where we're always drawing Venn diagrams. And I think there's a reason the middle of that Venn diagram is so small. Whenever you draw a Venn diagram, that middle portion is so small, because that's the joke that everyone will laugh at is so hard to find. It's so hard to hit. And I think it's probably pretty boring. Of like a joke that everyone will laugh at. It's like, I wake up
because it's safe.
Because it's safe, right? It's like the joke. It's like, hey, we all hate getting up in the morning and go to work. And there's always going to be somebody in the back of the audience like, fuck you, I work nights. Like,
right.
Like it's, and so the aim, I think a lot of people on the outside or, sometimes you'll like your normie friends that don't do comedy. They think that you're trying to find the joke that will hit for everyone. Like, and that you're going to have that one joke. It's going to hit for everyone. It's going to be a movie and then a TV show and then a book and a musical. And you're going to EGOT like off this one joke that everyone in America likes. But it's like, that's so hard. That's probably safe. And it's maybe sometimes so safe that our weird, demented comedy minds have like skipped over it. It's like, well, I think a lot, well, someone's already done that. Like that's the first thought. Like in improv, you're taught to sort of dismiss the first thought. So like when you're getting a suggestion from the audience, they say, okay, give me a suggestion of a location. And someone says like a mechanic shop. Your first thought is it's a customer and a mechanic. So you're like, all right, skip that. What is next? Oh, maybe it's two mechanics. We can skip that one too. And it's like, oh, we're two customers waiting in the waiting room and we just broke up, but we still, both our names are on the lease of the car.
Okay.
So let's do that scene. You know, like that's different. We maybe haven't seen it. Two people like, I'm not paying for this because you never change the fucking oil. I'm not paying for the oil change. Well, you said that the front half of the car was your half of the car and the engine's in the front half. You
Look
know,
at
like,
that.
but to get there, you had to discard the first and second thought.
One of the other things I came across in my research, Allie, was your cancer journey.
Yes. Oh boy.
Yeah. If my math is right, this was, what was it? Was it 4 years ago? Is that right?
Yes. I was diagnosed in December of 2021.
How did you know?
For looking back, there were other things that were happening, but the thing that made me go to the doctor, I developed a really large bruise on the side of my left breast that was about the size of a softball. The bruise was that big, and there was a lump in the bruise. It was oddly shaped, and it was getting bigger quickly. And we have a history of breast cancer in my family. I lost some women in my parents' generation to breast cancer. So anything in that area, my antenna goes up immediately. And you know, I'm in the age range where you gotta start looking for that stuff. I was young for it, but it could have popped up. So I went to my mom's primary care doctor, because I didn't have a primary care doctor as a millennial. We don't have good health coverage or health care. I have great health coverage. Didn't have a team. And so I went to my mom's primary care doctor, and he looked at it and he said, hey, it's a bruise. I don't know. He referred me to a breast care center. They did a mammogram. They did an ultrasound. They said it's a hematoma inside a bruise. We don't know why. I hadn't gotten hit there. I don't play sports. They were like, did your dog jump on you? I was like, I don't have a dog. I went to another primary care doctor because I was thinking, if this is breast cancer, I need to start with a primary care physician. So I went to a primary care physician. She looked at it, said the same thing. It's just a bruise. I don't know. But she said, do you want to do your annual physical blood work? When was the last time you did that? I was like, I couldn't tell you. They drew the blood work. I went home. The next morning, they started calling my phone, and I was on hiatus from the show. So I was on vacation time. Started getting phone calls starting at 7 a.m. They couldn't get me. They called my parents because my mom was my emergency contact.
Right.
Woke my mom up, said it's an emergency. She needs to call us. My mom tried to call me. I'm dead asleep. My boyfriend had woken up for work. She called my boyfriend, call your mom, call the doctor. They said, your white blood cell count, normal range is 10 to 20. Yours are 200. They said, you have to go to an emergency room now. You are a stroke risk because of the white blood cell count. And they said, this is either lymphoma or leukemia. You need to go to the ER right now.
Wow.
So I called my mom back. I said, this is leukemia or lymphoma. They knew some people on staff at a hospital, so I went there. My boyfriend came with me. My parents joined me. And it was like 20 minutes after they drew the blood work and ran everything, and they came back and they said, you have chronic myeloid leukemia. Yeah.
So which requires a stem cell transplant?
It doesn't always, but it does for me. It did for me.
And you had a donor with your brother. That's amazing.
Yes, my older brother was my donor. So we had to play a little bit of finding the right place to do the transplant. The first hospital I went to, I had some real difficulties, and it's really, just not the place. I wanted to have this very intense care experience. So we ended up going to a different hospital. But in that process of realizing, oh my God, this first hospital is not right for us, both of my brothers got tested to be a donor. And they kept being like, the ideal thing is if your younger brother's a match because he's younger. That would be even better. But it was my older brother. He was a 10 out of 10 match. And even like a couple things where they're like, nobody ever, these are optional things to be matched. So he was, but we said like a 12 out of 10 match.
Is it like a rheostat, Allie, where it's always on? It's not something you can ever in your brain turn off. Are you always thinking about it, or have you been able to move past it now that you're recovered?
I like to think very early on, I really identified that like there is sort of a really wild, loud positivity in a lot of ways that people talk to cancer patients, talk about cancer patients. You got it, warrior mama. I was like, no, thank you. I do not feel like a warrior mama. And so something I really strived for was to have sort of cancer neutrality or cancer sustainability, that it was just a part of me that I didn't, that it could just be the same way that some people, some people have other chronic conditions that they just live with. And so I've worked very hard that, in my family, that I can joke about things and we can joke about it. And looking back at the process of going through the stem cell transplant, and I used to say, sometimes I'd say, I'm only going to do one hard thing a day. And sometimes that hard thing is cancer, to let myself, but to use that as an excuse to go to Dunkin' Donuts or to turn in something a little late.
Sure.
Or to turn down something of like, oh, this would be really cool, but I'd have to work really hard and like maybe move or, just like, that's a hard thing I can't do today because the hard thing I'm doing today is have cancer. But so I think trying to find that it's a neutral thing that happened to me. It's not a sob story. It's not a story of my warrior mama inspiration strength, because that doesn't feel right either. But just that it's just something very weird, very strange that happened to me. And, getting people around you to also see that and to talk about it in that way. I had to kind of prep people. Hey, don't say, oh, you're so strong. Because I wasn't. I was very tired frequently.
I'm sure. Yeah. But I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing well and continue to thrive.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
On the way out here, Allie, tell me what it is about Chicago that means so much to you. And I know that you've been able to stay here your whole life, right? Even writing for Last Week Tonight, you're able to do that from Chicago. What does the city mean to you?
I mean, I think it's a city that, it's a city that likes comedy. Chicago's a really smart audience. They're a very engaged audience. So as a place, like if you like theater, if you like comedy, I tell my students, I go, if you want somewhere to do the free, cheap version of the thing you want to do it here. And so I think there's a lot of places where it's not as hard to live here as it is in some other places where comedy or theater or TV or whatever. So that is great. I also think like once you're kind of seen as a Chicagoan, like they got your back for fucking anything.
Yep.
And I think like I've also just had a great experience of, going through everything with my cancer. Being in the hospital and realizing, oh my God, somebody on staff here I went to elementary school with, and they remember me and they're like, oh my God, how's your family? How's your mom? You know what? I'm going to drop off some bread. Like that is not, I'm not having that experience in a lot of other places.
Right.
So that's also great.
We all living in Chicago hear from people outside the city about, their perceptions of everything from crime and gun violence and all the things that are said to be wrong about Chicago. I'm assuming as a native, you're profoundly protective of the city. And on that note, let me ask you what you think is wrong with the city. What could Chicago be doing better to make things better?
I think a lot of the things, I think a lot of the things that people think are happening in Chicago is what sometimes, like when they're like, oh my God, this over here, there's crime in this area, or there's crime in this area. And it's like, I think we need to start saying, no, these areas are underserved, that we've written off parts of the city. And I think people who live in Chicago do that. I think people that live in the suburbs do that. And I think people that live all across the country do that. And a lot of issues could be solved if we stop looking at at crime, at poverty, at an area not being developed as an inevitability. That is the result of choices that have been made for decades and decades and decades in Chicago. That if it's a neighborhood that is poor now, is underserved now, it's because that's like a natural evolution of what's happening in that zip code. No, it's because somebody somewhere else turned off the spigot of resources in that area to turn them on somewhere else. And the solution is probably not, building a luxury apartment complex somewhere because the land is cheap or because someone is, prospecting it as like the hot new neighborhood. So we have to move in, a luxury apartment building because it's too expensive for somebody to live in another part for some, for some person who maybe moved here from Iowa and they work downtown and they can't afford to live somewhere else. So they got to go further and further from the loop. So we're going to build things that cater to transplants in underserved neighborhoods and not have those things accessible to the people that actually live there. Yeah. The solution is probably going to people that live in these neighborhoods and saying, what do you want? What do you need? Yeah. And believing them that they know what's best for themselves.
Listen, Allie, your experience and insight has been very interesting. I really appreciate you spending the time. I know you have a lot on your plate, and the next time I watch The Bachelor, I'll think of you because I'll probably, I do go, this has become big business, after I watch an episode of anything, I'll go and see what, people like you have said online about it.
Well, it's about to be we're going into the last few episodes of The Golden Bachelor. So there's gonna be hot topic, I'm sure.
Is that working? Is the golden? I mean, is it working?
The guy that they picked for this season.
You're not a big fan.
He's not. Yeah, he's not really. He's not being vulnerable and open to the process.
Oh, okay. But he was sure open and vulnerable at the beginning. That's what he stepped in it right out of the gate, didn't he?
And I think he said that he wasn't interested in women that were over 40. He is a man over 60. But so the women he's gotten to the end with are great. Like that's always the case on The Bachelor. The women are always the most interesting part. Even more so on The Golden Bachelor. But so it'll be interesting because he hasn't really said if he's going to propose or if he's like, yeah, we'll see. And it's like, hey buddy, you're 60. Like, let's lock it in. Let's lock in.
The first one, what did that first one last? About a minute and a half?
I think they were married for about 9 months, maybe.
Was it that long?
Yeah.
Oh, my. Look at this, Allie. It always comes back to reality TV, doesn't it?
I mean, but what else is there in the world? It all starts there and ends there.
Yeah. All right. Listen, now, good luck with Last Week Tonight. Looking forward to the book.
Thank you.
I hope it's a huge hit for you. And the next time we play Cards Against Humanity or watch some reality TV, we'll think of you. Allie, thanks so much again for the time.
Thanks for having me.
My thanks to Allie. You can find her Bachelor work at vulture.com. John Oliver's show airs on HBO. You can also find episodes on the show's YouTube page, Last Week Tonight. Our audio engineer is Brian Griggs from Brian Griggs Productions. I asked my friend Chicago vibraphonist Thaddeus Tukes to come up with the original theme music. If you're in Chicago, I would highly recommend you check his website, ThaddeusTukes.com, to see if he's playing in town. You recognize the voice on the way in. That's Bill Curtis. He was kind enough to lend his legendary voice to the introduction each episode. I'm Joe Donlin. I'll see you on CBS News Chicago. It's available everywhere on the CBS News app. And as always, I thank you for listening to Chicago Unscripted.